Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, the only show on Indian television where you, the MSME, get center stage. This is ET Now special daily initiative to give MSMEs and entrepreneurs the opportunity to be front and center in every industry and area that matters to you. Tonight on the show, our panel of experts is always answering all the questions you've sent to us, and later on the show, we put the spotlight on education and a conversation with Katha that's coming up. Tonight we have two experts, Anita Belani, she's the CPO at Gaja Capital, as well as Sunil Gupta, angel investor, answering questions that you, our viewers, have sent us across industries. Do stay tuned at the end of the show. As always, we'll tell you how you too can send us your questions. Anita, Sunil, thank you both. Such a pleasure having you both here tonight, and we've got a whole host of questions coming in. So let's kick tonight's show off then with our first query, and this is a call that's coming to us from the line of Sachin Yadav. Sachin, thanks very much for calling us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. What's your query for our experts?
Yeah, I'm Sachin, founder of iPronto. So the question was how to start a startup, a disruptive startup in India? Because the thing is, when you are going for the disruption, you will be lacking for the funds and the good connections. Because if you are not a well-known founder, then you might not have a lot of accessibility of the capital. So the question was how to start a disruptive idea in India.
Okay, this is a very interesting question. One is you don't have the funds, you don't have the kind of connections that you should possibly have in whatever business you're in. So what's the way out for a small business?
You know, disruption is happening all, and lots of people are interested in new ideas. It's about how you get access to those kinds of forums. So if there is really merit in his idea and there is something that is really disruptive, he should get access to angel networks. There are lots of startup events where incubators come to scout for these opportunities, get access to that. And that's the only way to get your idea out without funding, and that's how you will get the money also.
You need to take that idea further in terms of filtering with various lenses of whether it is creating a good amount of disruption in terms of business or industry or a technology or a social, and whether it has a capability to reach a scale to that particular idea, in terms of business point of view. As Anita said, if he is not well connected, then he can use all these accelerators and this incubator, which provide an ecosystem for various kind of support, whether it is a funding support or a marketing support or even execution and infrastructure. So I think he should make use of those.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What you need, of course, is the ecosystem, like our experts are saying, and a large part of that you can tap associations, you can tap events that are happening to be able to build your network and possibly raise funding, and all the very best for that. Our next query is coming to us from Satyajit Sadhukan. Satyajit has said on our Facebook page that he's in the grocery delivery business and that it's a very low margin business. His question for our experts tonight is that he's having an issue with delivery. That's as far as the logistics is concerned. He says delivery costs in India are very high and needs help and ideas, of course, in terms of how delivery costs can be lowered. I know that delivery cost is one of the reasons why you had a lot of the food delivery stuff.
Yeah,
totally.
That is what
exactly. Yes.
So what would you suggest for him?
Food delivery cost today, actually, if you look at all the companies, it's a very prohibitive cost for them. One of the things that you can really look at is optimizing your route. Basically, what happens is, because you want to get the business, you say somebody needs something, I'll send it right now. Sure. So that's number one. And then also seeing if you can piggyback on some of the delivery, other delivery networks instead of creating one of your own, because they may be already having, a good infrastructure and delivery personnel that you can actually tag on to.
So this is a real pain point now, which every business is facing. So what is important is that you need to break down the whole delivery process. So whether insourcing or outsourcing it to another channel where they can use existing delivery. So one of the major component is the fuel cost in that. So there are now solutions available from startups which are providing e-bikes and battery operated, where they are reducing the cost to 1/10 of that what you are trying to say. Typically current cost is around 12 rupees per kilometer, which they are bringing down to 2 rupees per kilometer by these e-bikes, which can reduce substantially the delivery cost. I think you can explore those kind of mechanisms.
Okay. Satyajit, that's in response to your question. It is a difficult model, like our experts are saying, when it comes to the delivery and logistics in India. But there are a lot of options that you can look at, and those answers have been given to you by experts tonight. Thanks very much for that question. Our next query is a call coming to us from Raghunath. Go ahead, Raghunath.
Being a startup in India, we always have this question on mind: why people are not supporting a startup? Because most of the people are going to established company, who, no matter what, finally what they choose is, when it comes to startup or brand, they'll choose brand. Why?
2 or 3 things that you think startups should keep in mind when it comes to talking about their USP. If you're a small business, how do you hold your own against a large business?
It's a, this is a tough one actually, because every business requirements are different. But what really, I think, what really works is, it's about clarity of who you are, what are you trying to do, who's your target market, and how do you really get in front of that target market or target group. It's about, and being able to talk about what you're trying to do in a manner that is clearly understood. It's about really, being very, very clear. This is who I am. This is what I'm trying to do.
See, for startup is always a challenge to fight a big enterprise in the same space. So what is important is to create very strong differentiation, value proposition in terms of your product, pricing, feature, support, and get into solving a problem, what Anita said, specific pain point where the enterprise are having issues there. Rather than attacking the whole gamut of things for serving a customer, try to identify very small pieces and then give a proper value proposition to address that market space.
Okay. Raghunath, one tip from our experts who look at startups day in and day out, of course, is that choose your target area and look only at that, and that will perhaps give you an edge over your competitors. Thanks very much for that. Our next query is coming to us from Carol Pinto. Carol has sent us this email. She says they're a B2C business model based out of Bengaluru, collaborating with artists in the city. She says she would like to collaborate with artists in different cities, work with them. What are some of the forums or platforms to be able to find these artists? If it's an established business, she has a pool, maybe start with that pool and get those connections. What would you recommend?
See, in terms of reference, she is asking, then there are various platforms already existing. There are platforms for handicrafts artisans, there are platforms for, musical artists are there. There are companies like Canvas, companies like Culture Shop, companies like, there are international platforms also where they have and onboarded the amateurs as well as the professional artists. So those are the good reference point to take those kind of help from in terms of finding those artists.
There are many forums like that, and there's a website called freelancers.com which has all kinds of artists to artisans to all kinds of consultants to whatever you want, it's all there. So she just has to do a little search online and she'll find number of platforms.
Sure. Okay. So there are multiple platforms for you, Carol, if you're looking at expanding your base. And we've run out of time on this show. Thank you both very much for being here tonight. Time for a break. On the other side, on Influencer, we're focusing on Katha tonight. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight on Influencer, we're putting the spotlight on Katha. I spoke with Geeta Dharmarajan. She's the founder of Katha, a non-profit in the field of education, about how the education space is changing, how entrepreneurs are innovating in the space, and how you can and should be making profits in this space. Take a listen to what she had to say. Geeta, such a pleasure having you with us here tonight on Leaders of Tomorrow. My first question to you is as far as the role and the model of social enterprises is concerned. Your advice for our viewers about whether social enterprises can also generate revenues, can also be for profit.
The Katha model was actually started with children's input in 1988-89. The idea was that we need to bring children to the front of whatever education we are giving them. And that had to be with something that they liked, they enjoyed, rather than what we as adults think is important for them. So in the Katha model, the first thing I did was to say no textbooks for them. So in the Katha schools, we've not had textbooks from 1990 onwards. And it has actually helped the children to become more creative, more innovative, and reach all kinds of places, because most of our children come from the poorer communities, the disadvantaged communities of Delhi. The model itself looks at an ideology which says that, you know, no one person can go up if they are not able to contribute to society. So there is a me-we ideology that it is built on, that I had built the whole model on. And we say that classroom practices need to help the child to think very deeply. So we call it an active story-based learning. The idea is that children should be given the kind of material, the kind of content which will help them to think, ask questions, discuss amongst themselves, and which should lead to some kind of an action which might and hopefully would benefit the society that they live in. So the whole idea is that, you know, the education that we give a child should answer the questions that we in society have. It cannot be separate from what we are experiencing in life. It should be tied to life. So it should be a lifelong learning, and it should be a curriculum for life, and not just for tests and for exams and for individuals to stress about, you know, what they are doing and how they are doing it. And hopefully, I think over the last 25, 30 years, we've succeeded in making this model acceptable to many schools, to government, and to various people. Because I think profit for the country means many different things. There has to be a social profit, there has to be a profit which is coming to many. And if the children are earning money and they are making a profit in their lives, I think the venture is a success, and that's the way I would like to look at it. But making a social venture like this profitable, it will take a little time, because India is a poor country, and we cannot expect education, which is a social enterprise, which should be the area where government is interested and government is pumping in money. So health and education are those areas for a very long time, for centuries, and we cannot suddenly turn it into a for-profit model. It has to be in the not-for-profit range of activities that we do. When I'm looking at profit, I think we call ourselves a profit for all organization, mainly because social entrepreneurships are always a profit for all.
So my next question then is a follow-up to understand, for those of our viewers who are watching this show who might want to understand how to also focus on the social aspect of their for-profit organizations, how do you advise, how do you suggest that they are able to marry the two?
Actually, I think with the CSR coming in and with a lot of work happening in technology among startups, amongst people who are interested, today I think the generation we have here is completely interested in social change happening in our country. And I think we are very nicely marrying the social work and the social domains that we work in, and the more entrepreneurial and the way in which startups can fund their own activities. Sure. Now, when I look at entrepreneurship, I think the role of non-profits is to be entrepreneurial. So I think that's the first match that happens. Entrepreneurship wedding the activities that we do in the field at the grassroots level, and the way in which technology, the way in which startups are coming in with fantastic new ideas, And I think when these two come together, I think as a country and as a people, we will all benefit.
Let me ask you a big picture question at this point, Geeta. How do we change the way we educate our children in India? It's no secret that as far as the PISA rankings are concerned, globally, we aren't doing very well. The quality of children who are able to read texts for their own standards is, of course, it's not looking good. How do we then ensure that the way children are being taught, the way they are learning is going to change?
Well, I feel the way we have gone about it has been a very Western way of looking at learning. When you go back and look at the universities we've had, when you look at the kind of translations that have happened, when, for instance, Akbar was writing his, the Akbarnama was being written, and many people came together to help it to be translated into Farsi and other languages, we find that India has always had a solution. And we've said that, there can be no problem where there is no solution. And that solution somehow has got frozen over the last few years. We've not gone back to the child, who is an important part of this learning process. We can't just say that we as adults know everything. We don't. We have to know what the child knows, what the child wants to know, and where the child wants to be. And that is the change that I think we need to do in our country. We definitely need to be throwing away all the textbooks, I think, because the textbook sort of limits the knowledge. A child may be coming into the classroom thinking that she wants to learn about spaceships and about space travel, and here we are stuck on the ground looking at solar or looking at geography or something like that. Why is it not possible to lead with what the child wants to know, and why can't the teacher say, I don't know? I think this is something that we've all been saying for a very long time in India, but somehow the autonomy that we want for the child and the autonomy we want for the teacher is sometimes missing. Now, what Katha has been doing over the last few years is to move into, right from the beginning, when I started in 1990, I started with the community, the disadvantaged communities that we work in Delhi. And I have found that when the community comes together and is interested in the child learning, whether it be a gated community or it be a poor community, I think then we see education really happening. It is not led by the ambitions of the parent or by the person in charge, by the caretaker. It starts with the child and where the child wants to be and what the country wants. A place where children can help other children to read well, a place where, when India is going to be spending trillions of dollars on infrastructure, when we are going to be one of the superpowers, at that point of time, I think we cannot just depend on people who know English to lead us. I think we need a more equitable society. We need a place where everybody can come in and share their place under the generous Indian sun.
I was just talking to you about the PISA ranking, Geeta. So I want to understand from you, as someone who's been so closely involved with this space over so many years now, how can we ensure that the quality of education, whether in private or public schools, can be fixed? How have we gone so wrong? And I want you to also talk about, of course, what we can do to ensure that our ranking as far as where we stand globally can be fixed.
See, PISA is an international system. I don't think we can say that our education is good or bad because we don't pass the PISA. Because the standards that they set for themselves, the kind of questions that they ask are very different from what we have. But having said that, I think our children should become more creative and innovative. We should be able to answer a question without knowing what the question is, without it coming from a textbook. And I think our children should be in a position to answer, not just for passing a test or an exam. I think once we reach that point, and where there's more freedom for children to experiment, to innovate, to be creative, to ask questions, to even ask silly questions, stupid questions, and for the teacher to be able to accept these, for the teacher to say, I don't know. I think we need to reach that point for us to be able to pass any such test as the PISA, I think, because that requires innovativeness and experimentation and thinking on the spot for our children. Many of them don't have such opportunities in India today.
We talk very often about the role of technology across industries and sectors here on Leaders of Tomorrow. Education is no different. Even as we're talking about EdTech, what is the larger role that you see education as well as technology, the marrying of the two really having going forward?
Technology has a huge role to play in what we are doing. I think when we are looking at the immense growth of mobile technology in our country, and the way that we are reaching out to people who are living in rural areas, in very distant places like the Northeast, which are difficult to reach today in India, I think mobile technology is a very good way to go. Secondly, I think government for many years now has been trying to have their fiber optics in place, and once they get the fiber optics in place and we are connected not just to the panchayat level, not to the block or the district level alone, but we are able to connect to the villages themselves, I think at that point of time, we as people who are publishers, who are in education, if we can have enough quality content for the children to be to excite them into learning, to excite them into reading, because finally if children cannot read, I don't know, that's the first skill that our country needs, all children reading. I think we need to get them the joy of reading, and that can happen. We used to have our satellites at one point of time, and I think we were a little ahead of the time more than 40 years ago. I think we should be bringing those things back again. India should be exploring how can we reach out technology, not in the limited way of either a computer technology or a mobile technology, but in ways in which we are able to give quality to the child on demand, on tap. I think that would be the biggest thing that technology can do, and I think we have a long way to go for that. But I hope and wish that India comes into that space where every child, whether living in the Tihar jail or any other jail, whether living in tribal villages, whether living in rural villages, in urban slums, I hope we can treat everybody on an equitable platform, and we can see the world becoming a kinder place where we can help one another and grow into a strong nation.
We've been speaking about the role of private businesses and companies when it comes to improving the quality of education. I'd like to talk to you about the role of the government as well. How do PPPs essentially, is what I'm trying to understand, in the field of education work, if they have to be effective? Your thoughts, your comments.
See, PPP is a very difficult model, because I think we have three partners over here who each have their own agendas and each have their own ways of approaching a problem. I think as people, as citizens of this country, I think we need to come together. We need to be in a position to tell government that, whether they are able to do it or not, we can, because finally it is the child who's important. And I think we need to look at the child, and I think traditionally in India, the child, while we all say that, Krishna and Rama as children are all very important, we've never given that importance to the child. But I want every citizen to say that this is an important place that we should be, and we should be working with government, we should be working on our own. I think any model and every model should work, and technology, I think, is a major thing we are looking at over here, especially for the 300 million challenge that we are working on now. Because I think we need a larger platform where all of us can come together and say, yes, we can tackle this problem, because it's an immense issue and a challenge for India.
Geeta, thank you very much for speaking with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. All right, completely out of time on this episode of Leaders of Tomorrow. If you have any feedback for us or any suggestions on any companies or industries that we should be talking to, here's how you can reach us. leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com is our email ID. You can also tweet at me personally at Sunanda_J, or our official Twitter handle LOT_ET Now. You can also reach us on our Facebook page, Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good night.